Hello, good day, everyone. Glad to have you on the session today on Tech Build Africa. And yes, this is that very moment on Tech Rounds where we get to discuss and talk about innovative topics, interesting facts and insights from thought leaders within the ecosystem. And today promises to be very, very interesting. So if you're joining us, stick around and then feel free to join the conversation. We have an interesting guest in our studio today. Of course, today we are talking about the woman in innovation. And this is a sequel from celebrating the International Women's Day. And I mean, what day can it be than to celebrate women once again in this very month? Thank you very much for joining. My name is Emmanuel Amogu, and this is Tech Build Africa. Tech Rounds is live. And yes, with me in the studio today is someone who has been doing the most in the ecosystem. We've not had her on our platform before, and yes, of course, we're having the honors of bringing her on Tech Rounds today. I'm talking about no other person than Onyeka, who is also the founder of SIT. Onyeka is here with us in the studio to discuss this very interesting topic. Onyeka is a seasoned brand strategist, educator, and management advisor, and then a stellar work track record spans across diverse industries, including finance, logistics, sustainable fashion, FMCG, investment and education, with household and pioneering players like the GTB, the Centstack Africa, First Bank of Nigeria, Boxplay Ventures, and a lot of places she has added value to. So Onyeka is locally built and globally recognized with her work, which has been featured in the British Vogue, the Byte magazine, UK, and Vogue Italia. I mean, there is actually a lot we can say about these interesting personality in Onyeka. And yes, Onyeka, glad to have you on Tech Rounds today. How are you doing? Yes, we are going to be discussing empowering women in tech. Hi, Onyeka, how are you doing? Good to have you on Tech Rounds.
Hi, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, of course, the pleasure is mine to have you on Tech Rounds today, Onyeka. You're welcome once again. So, like I said earlier, the topic for our discussion today is empowering women in tech, diversity, leadership, and inclusion. And these are the key elements we need to consider if we are going to empower women in tech and innovation. And yes, if we are going to discuss about this, then we have to drive our talking points around the gaining deeper understanding of the challenges that women face, and then also go beyond the challenges to look at the opportunities that these women can leverage to do more in this ecosystem. So if you are going to support a woman, then you have to give a woman an opportunity to play. So there has to be an interplay between the male gender and the female gender.
And that's what we're also going to be talking about. And also, we'll be looking at the importance of empowering the next generation of women in tech leadership and supporting women innovation.
This thing about the Nigerian country, that the labors of our heroes past shall not be in vain. So I'm very sure that the labors of the women of today, what they are trying to achieve, what they're trying to make possible, will not be in vain, because it will empower the girl child that will be tomorrow's woman. So yeah, and that's very important. So enough about my own points here. So let's tilt the camera back to Onyeka, who is wonderful, and you can see her cheerful face. She's really, really ready to offer a lot of value today. So Onyeka, let's get to know you. Who are you and how are you adding value in the ecosystem?
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for the intro. My name is Onyeka Nwobu, and I am three things, right? Three key things. I'm an educator, I'm a brand strategist, and I am a women's leadership coach. I'm going to start as an educator. What I do is I really help people deepen their self-awareness and truly understand their capabilities, and I guide them through a learning process that broadens, that helps expand their thinking process, and I do this in specific subject matters like strategy, branding, and leadership. So I basically teach people about these specific subject matters The other thing as a brand strategist is what I do is I serve as, you can think of me as the brain that really connects to the hearts of the consumers or the customers. And what I'm trying to do in that regard, or what I do in that regard, is really learn about the needs of the customers and the consumers to help the companies or the leaders really think of how to innovatively solve or their needs or solve their problems while making profits. As a woman or women's leadership coach, what I do is I help women in rising to and aspiring to leadership. I help them do three key things, which is establish their influence, multiply their impact, and really develop their leadership. As Emmanuel has also shared, I am the founder of SIT Global, which stands for Strategists in Tech. And SIT is a school that is designed to help professionals and company leaders develop their expertise in the disciplines of strategy and branding. And this we do so that to help them take a more effective and holistic approach to business growth. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Right, so let's move ahead with this conversation. In your own perspective, what would you say is the status quo of a woman in the tech and innovation space today?
I would say the woman in tech today is literally still scratching the surface. And this is a very honest take from my perspective. Women in technology seem to have made progress, which I think we need to acknowledge, first of all. And I think that this also, the fact that we've made progress gives sense of for future. Now, as regards the status quo, where I foresee some lack of progress or something that might impact progress in future, is the overemphasis of women in technology specializing in technical skills, right? And it might seem a lot like it might seem like there's some inclusion right now, but women being majorly taught technical skills actually does limit their ability to be included in decision-making roles, which is where the real inclusion and diversity needs to start happening, right? So there's a statistic that was shared last year about in 2023 about women in tech leadership, how the percentage fell to 23%. Now, the problem is, if we're even struggling with the fact that there aren't that many women at the top in tech already, and it now falling by 23%, it just makes it like it makes it, or it means that now we're even having to deal with a decline, right? And I think the reality from that is that it makes it so much harder for other women in tech to be truly included, because we have less advocates at the top. So there will be things like less policies, less regulations that are passed in favor of women, right? So I think going back to your question about the status quo, is like we've made some progress, but there's so much more to be done. And I think an area that really needs to be looked into is shifting our focus from just grooming women in or developing their expertise or their technical expertise, to driving or advocating for them to be developed in the areas of soft skills. So let's teach women strategy. Let's teach women high-level communication. Let's teach women branding. Let's teach women negotiation, prioritization. These are things that we need, because we say technology, it seems like it, but at the end of the day, we do technology and it's for business purposes. So if we're going to do business, we need women who actually understand, lead companies effectively.
So it's not just about having a woman being employed. I think we're moving to the level of having a woman in the boardroom, having a woman in the board of advisory, having a woman at the helm of affairs, having a woman leading a team. So we're getting there, and I hope you will be able to achieve much. So to the next question that we have here, so what has been your own journey coming from self-discovery to running your own ideas, and how can a woman out there be motivated by what you're doing so far?
To be very honest, it took me quite some time to be able to discover myself and really be clear or get clear on where I fit in the pieces of the puzzle, especially when it comes to the technology space, right? My journey was relatively very experimental, and that's because I had a lot of time. I would say I started out really young. I think I started experimenting in my career, in my journey from the age of maybe 17, 18. And I bounced around quite a number of different industries. You know, there was fashion, finance, logistics, investments, now education. And what it helped me really helped me do was to understand myself and understand that at the core of things, I'm really a builder and a visioner, right? And that really made me sure of my choice to remain in entrepreneurship. And to engage only in senior level or high level management roles. And what I would say in terms of motivation, or I would say this as more of a guide for young women who are finding their ways or discovering themselves, is I want to first reemphasize that I started out really young, so I had a lot of time. So I would not recommend my blueprints, step by step for every other woman. But the advice I would give is for women who are still in the self-discovery phase, to really selectively identify voices of influences, whose guidance that they can trust. Whether they're in close proximity to the person or it's from afar, they select those voices of influences and also really, again, identify the core areas of their lives that resonate with them so that they can build out more original pathways for themselves, right? So I would advise that, and I would also advise being selective about the pairs that the people that they surround themselves with. And I mean that in terms of their peers, right? Because that really influences things. So I think that would be my recommendation in terms of how they can approach self-discovery. And this is outside of my personal blueprints.
That's very awesome. And I believe anyone that's listening right now will be able to take a cue from your own perspective. Most of the times I tell people, you don't have to learn from your experience. Why not learn from other person's experience? Why not take bits from what people are experiencing and how they've been able to even be a better version of themselves, and then add it to whatever you have to build to yourself, and then it would help you go far instead of you going back from scratch.
I would say if you can find people who have similar journeys, it will be much easier for you. In the early phases of my career, I was fortunate to have people who I could follow their paths, but then I realized as I was growing along the way, there were not that many people, and so it made me have to fail along the way, right? Learn lessons, and then recalibrate and come back and say, okay, this is how to actually do it now. And I'm happy that I've gone through those failures, because what that means is women who want to do or toe the same path as myself now have a blueprint for that career path that they want to go in. So yeah.
Also, people say failure is not the end of everything, but it could be the start of a great turnaround. What do you think are the barriers to gender diversity?
Yeah, I would say there are quite a number of barriers. There's so many barriers, but today, for the purpose of this, and I've learned this, I spent quite some time really just observing the ecosystem, talking to people. So I think the one barrier I will focus on today, fundamentally, because if we don't fix it or address it, nothing's going to change, is the barrier of education. Now, I know we talk a lot about how women are not included, but I guess my question to that would be, included by who? That's the question, because the statement we're not included, it sounds like we're waiting for people to include us, right? In conversations, in rooms, without realizing that we really need to arm ourselves with knowledge on how to strategically penetrate difficult to enter rooms, how to handle opposition, how to navigate being the minority in the rooms, how to build capacity to pull others up along the way so that the status quo does not always remain the same. So I think my focus on the focus barrier, or the barrier I would say we should focus on addressing the most, especially in the innovation technology space, is really education. I mean, in any space, to be very honest, this is not limited to it's not limited to the technology space. Any space is, we need to educate women. Every day I sit in conversation with women. As I said, like, I'm a women leadership coach. So what happens is, like, I literally am always in conversation with women. And what I learn is that they just don't know. They say knowledge is power. And when you don't have knowledge, ignorance is the worst thing that you can do to yourself. So I think I'm not trying to downplay the other factors or other barriers, but what I would focus on, first of all, which unlocks that, oh, I'm not invited to a room, or I'm not included, or you see a board and it's majorly made up of men, is you can invite yourself to the party. You can invite yourself to the conversation. You just need to be armed with enough information on how to do it. So yeah.
There is this word about women helping women that's been trending for a couple of years now. And I think it gets to a level when once we have women in positions of power, they should be able to help other women to come on board. It shouldn't be, there's something that I think is a local adage. It shouldn't be just you. So when you get there, what are you doing to bring up other people that were joining you in that fight? So, and then if you're checking the streets of Twitter and other social media platforms, you see people also saying that maybe women are not helping women enough, but I don't know if that's true. But I'll leave for you to throw more light on that. Do you think the women who are in the corridors of power are helping other women enough, or much is supposed to be done?
It's such an interesting conversation, and it's a conversation that I literally just had, I think 2 weeks back or a week ago. The problem is very multidimensional. I'll be very honest, because the way that I gather data is really by having real honest conversations with people. And sometimes they divulge, sometimes they don't, but you have to really pay attention to even what is not being said. What I have learned about a lot or majority of the women in the corridors of power, so to speak, is they don't actually, or they have built capacity the wrong way. So I think they have been so pressured in such a way where they only see capacity, and that's not true. Having capacity means you also have people. You need money and you need people. So a lot of the times, not having the people capacity means they don't have capacity. So they cannot pull people up. And I want to give an example. When you look at people like Ibukun Awosika, for instance, you can see how she's able to do so much for so many people across different categories. Whether you're man, woman, whatever it is, she's a board member. She guides women. She's a women's advocate or empowerment advocate. She does all these many things, and that's because she has people capacity. So I think it boils down to education again. For me, where I see it is, even the women at the top need to be educated. What do you need to do to actually have capacity to bring people up, right? And if you don't have that knowledge, you're going to keep thinking, oh, I have capacity because I have money, but you're not able to be able to create any impact. And you keep being the only woman in the room, which is not fun. It seems like it's fun right now, but wait till a couple years down the line. It's not going to be fun anymore. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And Onyeka, back to the conversation. So we've talked about how each individual should be able to build capacity first before any other thing. So do you think that a woman's story has been told enough?
In different women, very different stories. So no, I don't agree that it's being told enough. But again, power is not exactly giving to people. Like, you actually, there's nobody like holding power and then saying, oh, I'm going to give it to you. You actually have to go and take it, and what I'm trying to say is really a thing of, it's up to you to really like share your story at the end of the day in whatever format, scale, capacity that you can. I think women need to be more confident enough to start telling their own stories, because we have very, very, very different stories. right? And nobody's going to hand you a mic just because you're a woman. So I think that the simple answer to your question is no, the woman's story is not being told enough. But it's really, really in the hands of the woman to say, I want to share this story and I'm going to share the story, and then actually take action to share the story.
In 5 to 10 years time, let's say in a decade's time, what is it going to be? What is going to change? And where do you see us taking this conversation to?
I can't say that I know what standpoint everybody's going to be coming from, because I do understand that people will try to solve, or people will solve women's problems on many different levels, from very different perspectives and points of views. Personally, though, I am committing to, and this will be in collaboration with partners who align with what it is or how I feel that the women conversation needs to be taken. But I'm personally committing to designing or creating a future where we have more conscious female leaders, we have more female leaders or females or women in decision-making roles, and we have more women who are educated on subject matters, higher level subject matters, not the basic stuff. I know we need to deal with basics, and that is very, very valid. But once we bring people up to basics, what next is my question. And so for me, I see it going down or towards the direction of educating more women on higher level subject matters, because it's really important for them to know about it if they're going to ever get to that point where they step into decision-making roles or they become leaders.
This one is about your innovation journey. So if it were to have a theme song, which song will it be? Can you just sing it for us? If your innovation journey were supposed to have a theme song, which song would it be?
It would be Power by Kanye West, and it would be That would be my theme song.
Okay.
For sure.
That's interesting. I don't know if I know that song very well, but I'm very sure anyone relating to it would. I mean, go check it out. The full song. Personally, I'll go Google it.
I have a second.
Okay. Maybe I'll come for it then. And then who knows, it could inspire me or something. All right. Good to know. So what's the next big tech trend? Let's say we have the power to see what is going to come. What's the next big tech trend that you're looking out for, that you can't wait for it to take over already?
I think we already know what it is. It's AI. I think we already know what that conversation is about. I think it's still in its very nascent stages. So we're still trying to figure out what exactly or how far can it go, and how positively will it impact businesses and lives and jobs. And I think that's what's being figured out right now. So yeah, it will be AI for sure. And I think that conversation is going to be on at least for the next 3-5 years. Because I really
definitely.
Yeah.
That's cool. Speaking of AI, I personally have the conviction that it's going to still be very big, and it's growing big. If you check many of the common platforms that we use in daily life, we're having more AI integrations every day and we can even see more. Just last week, I did a free training for AI basics and bringing people on board to be able to leverage AI and do more with AI, because I believe people need to be exposed to building that capacity, yes, and that's part of the way to shut down the digital divide that do exist. It's been interesting on Tech Rounds discussing empowering the women in tech, looking at the standpoint of leadership, inclusion, and career generally. And I've not been having this conversation alone. I've had a very interesting personality joining me on this conversation, and thank you very much, Onyeka, for making our time to have this talk with me on Tech Rounds. And just before we skedaddle, I will just give you one more time to say your final words before we draw the curtains for today's session.
Okay, since we're talking about women, I just want to personally encourage every young, well, not just young, I want to encourage every woman out there, to be honest. The journey is very tough, but be rest assured that it's very doable. And you need to, first of all, build your own capacity, as I've shared. And in building yourself, surround yourself with similar people who are building that level of capacity, so that you can actually get to where you're going faster. And I really want to emphasize the importance of capacity in terms of collaboration, leveraging people. As women, we are so strong now, or the world has morphed us to be so strong that we always think that we can do things by ourselves. Learn to seek help and get comfortable asking for help and leaning into help. So yeah, those would be my final words for women.
That was powerful. I think that's the point where I start to like give a round of applause or something. Thank you very much.